Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me today on Dynamo BIM. Ehsan and I have an amazing Python tool for Revit today. We are going to be grabbing elements from a link. How many uses do you have for that come to mind? So many, right? You could grab rooms from a link. You could grab columns from a link. You could grab areas from a link. You could grab whatever you want based off of the link instance and the category. Ehsan's going to show us how to do that today, aren't you, Ehsan?
Hey, so yeah, very useful. It's super simple. It's not very complex, but it's also very, very useful because like we work with links all the time. And then, as you mentioned, like there's a whole bunch of stuff, especially like if you're a consultant working with somebody else's model, there's always stuff that you want to link in and kind of like figure out like, what's
Or
their
internally even, right?
yeah,
Sometimes we have
internally
a
even.
core
Yeah,
and shell and a facade model. Sometimes we have a furniture and
that's true.
equipment
Yeah,
model.
yeah,
Sometimes we have a lab model,
yeah.
all kinds of crazy models that we have linked in architecturally. Some people want to do all kinds of crazy things with links, right? I've seen every unit as a separate link. Have you seen this, Ehsan?
Oh yeah. Oh, I've played with all different kinds of that thing.
I bet.
It's
Right?
insane.
Architecturally, we can find all these different reasons of how to
Yeah,
break up our Revit models, right? How to
yeah,
have a million of them, right? Maybe we have a campus of buildings. Maybe we just want to grab something from our consultant links, like Ehsan is saying.
yeah,
But internally, I can even think of so many reasons that I want to share data with myself,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, across his design team. Like that's actually the first time that I used a tool similar to this was for when we had a couple of different people in the design team lay out a Revit model, but they would use 2D components for furniture, and then we would grab all the locations of the furniture from the link model, place the actual furniture in there for the better model, like for the
There you go.
development model. So anyway, let's get to it. I'm gonna start sharing. We have, as usual, we have a little section on the Notion page that we have for this. Episode 5, querying elements from links, or whatever the title of the final title of the video is going to be. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to create a dynamo definition like this that we have shared with you. But what it basically does is that in this section, we select a linked Revit file, and we use the standard built-in Dynamo components to get the Revit Link instance, which represents an instance of a Revit link in the Revit document, right? So if I switch to this model, I'm going to move the Dynamo away. Let's say if I go to 3D model and I look at this, let's say if I can select that link right here.
And it's worth noting that Ehsan has linked in the structural sample file into the architectural sample file. I don't think they come linked.
Yeah, they don't come linked. Yeah,
for whatever reason.
I had to do it manually. But they're sort of like built for each other, so it's very easy to link it in. So you can see that there's a structural model linked in here. This is what we call a link instance. The link document is what you see at the bottom of this list, at the bottom of your project browser. That's the document that's being linked. But this document can have multiple different instances inside your host model, right? So
just like in the case of where you have units.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You could copy that instance around.
Yeah.
Or maybe townhouses.
Yeah, exactly. Great example. So it could be like a building that's been sitting on, like townhouses sitting on its site at different locations, or it could be a unit like placed in different locations and stuff like that. And sort of like, just remember that what we get from Dynamo are the link instances, and we have to ask for the actual Revit document, which I'll show you later. But basically, we just grab that. We'll filter them out by name. Right now, we haven't specified a filter, so we just say anything. And then we grab that linked result, which is at the Revit link instance that we have selected. And we pick also a category here of the element categories that we want. In this example, we want select columns, for example. So structural columns, for example. Anything that's a structural column in that link document will be queried from this link document that we're going to select, that we're going to use. So what we are going to create is basically a Python script here, as usual, that will accept these two inputs. So I'm just going to throw these two in here, the link model and a sort of like category for the elements. And then we're going to grab the location for those elements. I'm going to throw it to the output and here. These are going to show errors because this Python script is not doing anything, but we're going to grab for example, the location of those elements. Maybe we want to place new geometry in here, do something else with it. You can do after this, you can almost do anything with these elements. So we're going to go inside the Rhino, the Python script. Keep saying Rhino. And then here we are going to grab that boilerplate Dynamo sort of like definition that we had from before. And you can find this at the top of that page, the whole template here, and sort of like start from there. I have shared the source of this script with you too on this Notion page. So I'm just going to grab it from here. And I'm going to replace everything in this script with what we have in the template. You can see that we are already grabbing the sort of like a reference to the host document. Remember that this doc is the document that contains the links. It's the host document. We don't have access. We haven't gotten the links yet. So as usual, we have done this multiple times in the previous examples. We are going to grab the two inputs that we have provided to this component. So I'm just going to put this in here, or we're going to talk about it. Link instance, this variable is going to represent the first input to the component, which is going to be a Revit Link instance. And we'll go to the documentation and I'll show you what that is. We remember in Dynamo, we kind of have to unwrap them to get the actual native Revit API type. And then we're also going to unwrap the category that gets passed from here to the component, and we get the Revit category. This is going to be a db.category object. Oops, that's C# puppets. db.category category. So whatever that's stored inside Revit category is going to be of type db.category. And this is going to be a db Revit Link instance. If I go to the documentation, to the API docs, and look for Revit Link instance, it represents an instance of a Revit Link type. Revit Link type is a type of link in Revit that links another Revit model, which is pretty clear. Revit Link instance has a couple of methods that are pretty usable. You can actually use this to create new instances of the link if you want to. They're fairly simple. You just pass the document to it and a Revit Link type ID to it, and it would create a new Revit Link instance for you. These are the static methods. What we're going to use today is that we're going to use this get link document. So from the instance, remember there could be many instances. From one of them that we have gotten from Dynamo, we're going to ask for the actual linked document. And it would it's going to give us a document type that we can use in a filtered element collector to collect whatever they need from it. At this point, once you have access to this document, you can pretty much do everything that you do with the normal document except changing it. Remember, linked documents have to be unloaded so they could be changed. But you can query as much as you want from that Revit Link as when it's open inside your inside the host model. So keep that in mind. So what we're going to do is that here I'm going to say link document. I'm going to create a new variable, and I'm going to ask the link instance to get Dynamo is not doing the right collection here. I'm going to get the linked document from it. And then this linked document, which will be the document type that is linked into the host document. There's a lot of documents in this sentence. So what we're going to do is that now we're going to create a filter to filter all the elements that we want. We have used the db.filter category filter element collector before. What we're going to use today is that we're going to use Revit filters that are sort of like Revit API filters that are built to work with the filter element category collector. Now I'm going to show you how this works. I'm just going to save this, and I'm going to use Rhino inside Grasshopper just because I have a little bit of a better visual representation in here of the filters. So if I go on the Revit tab on the filters, you can see there's a lot of different filters in Revit. You can create filter for category. you can create for class, filter for class, you can filter for type, you can filter for a specific parameter, like you can say, give me all the elements that a certain parameter has a certain value. And you can combine these filters too, like you can say, hey, let's say logical and, so like filter for this category and this type, and then you get a new filter at the end of this component. Now I can show you how these work in the Revit API itself. So if I search for element filter in the API, you can see that it's the base class for 3 other things. The element logical filter is the one that actually lets you combine filters together, right? So it's a logical or a logical and. So you can use it to combine multiple filters together. You can build a chain of complex filters this way to filter exactly what you need. There are 2 other major types, which is element quick filter and element slow filter. Remember always that Revit is a data, sort of like the data that Revit holds is like a database. So Revit, when it's running, it's indexing the stuff that it thinks it needs the most. So it has access to those in memory. When you ask Revit to give you sort of provide some information to you, sometimes it can just look into the information that it already has in memory to be able to give you that what you need. Like for example, if you have a view open in Revit, that view is already rendered and it's sort of like the elements that are contained in that view are already processed. When you ask Revit to give you the elements, it'll respond to you really quickly. But if you ask Revit to give you every element in every view in the model, then it's going to be very slow because Revit in the background has to open every one of those views in memory, figure out what is shown, what's not shown, and then process that filter for you, right? So always keep that in mind that when you're filtering using the API in Revit, make sure that always go with the quick filters and then go with the slow filters. Or if you're chaining filters together, chain the quick ones first, or like limit your sort of like the target collection of elements that you want to filter really quickly, and then use the slow filters at the end. So the slow filters have to operate on a fewer number of elements, right? Something like this. So keep that in mind. We're going to use element quick filter. One of its subclasses is called element category filter. It's a very quick filter because Revit already has this information in memory, already knows what elements, what category they belong to, and it's already have this place in memory somewhere, so it can really respond to you really quickly. We create this filter and then we pass it to the filter element collector to collect stuff for us. So if you want to represent what we're doing in here in sort of like in Grasshopper, let's say I want to create a filter for a built-in category, let's say, I don't know, walls. So I'm going to grab that category and I'm going to put it in here. And then we create that filter and then we query elements with it. So this is equal to using a filtered element collector, right? So remember these 3. We already are asking for this built-in category from the user. We create the filter and we query with it. So in our script, if you go back to the script, we got the handle to the document. Oh, I did not actually save that. So let's type, actually, let's go grab it from the example again. I'm going to grab all of that stuff and put it here, and we'll go over every single line. So we already wrote that, that we sort of like grab the document from the instance using the get link document. We create a category filter, just the way I showed you, db.element category filter, the one that I showed you in the API documentation. What it needs is the ID of the Revit category that you want to filter for. So we pass the ID of the Revit category that we received from the input to it. And you can see that very easily here. If you go to element category filter on the constructors for this type, you can see that the first one is actually this one. The second one is element category filter, element ID, and it's a category ID that we pass to it and it would create it. And then we use db filter element collector on the linked document. Pay attention here. We're not running it on the host document. We are running it on the linked document. These two are kind of the same from the standpoint of Revit API. They're both Revit documents, but one is linked from inside another one. So it's kind of limited. You can make changes to it, but you can't query it. Filter element collector, link document. We're going to use a method on the FEC, filter element collector, is called where passes, and we pass a filter to it. So we say, collect everything when it passes this filter, and then we put this sort of like default thing that we always use at the end with the filter element collector, unless we're looking for type, that where element is not element type. So it's kind of like a built-in filter in the filter element collector that filters out everything that's a type. So if you collected all the structural columns, it'll filter out everything that's a structural column type, and will give you all the instances. That's very important. So you don't have extra types and stuff like that in your model. The linked elements variable that it returns to us is a sort of like an instance of this filter element collector. So at the end, we need to call two elements. So it sort of like converts the results to a list of elements, and it would give us a very simple list of elements. And as the last line, we're just going to go grab that and pass it as a Python list to the output. So if I save changes, this is what happens. There should be a whole bunch of dots in here, right? Or I can't actually see them. So we get a whole lot of family instances here, and you can see their names. So they're all structural columns with their names in the output. They're the ones in the linked model. Although you have access to this element, but
zoomed in. You may have zoomed if you turn on the geometry preview up in the top right.
This one?
Yep. And then zoom to extents, which
zoom
is yep.
To extents.
You see there they are.
Oh yeah, they're all. Oh yeah. You're right. Oh wow. Okay, so there's.
You were zoomed in super far.
There we go. Super far. So this is all the locations of those columns that we grab. Fairly simple. The sort of like the most important thing here is to kind of understand how the filter element collectors that we always use to query stuff from the actual host model could exactly be used the same way with the linked models.
At this point, you could start to tag linked elements, right? You could start to copy the link elements based off their location and a family type that you specify, right?
You can read the property value that you want. Yeah.
Read the property values. Now, with that being said, it actually looks like when I do an element.get parameter value by name, and I just try to get like base level.
Okay.
I can't really get.
So you want to get
like,
level?
or just do like element.parameters.
Element.parameters. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then let's see what parameters we get from that guy.
Hey, I know how to use a watch.
Look at you.
See?
So there we go. So we can start to look at it that way, but it doesn't look like it does a get parameter value by name because the parameter values don't match. Well, like what you were saying when you were like, pay attention here. This is important. The document that you're retrieving isn't this document.
Yeah.
It's the link document.
So
you would need to get the parameter of not this document, the link document, which probably has a different ID.
Yeah, the thing is, the nice thing about, I'm not sure what the exact implementation of this works, right? But all the elements have a property that's called document. So you can actually ask the element which document it belongs to, and it would provide that information to you. So maybe it's an implementation of this, or just the fact that maybe we have to wrap these elements again in Dynamo when we're passing it to the output. So we have to check that on Dynamo. It's probably something with the Dynamo API, the way that we have to wrap elements and stuff like that. But I'm sure that could be figured out. This is not something that's very complex.
You want to stop sharing your screen, members of the audience. Ensure that you switch this over to manual execution at this point. Family instance by point absolutely works, right? I can grab the element location from the pre-built workflow that Ehsan gave us and do the family instance by point, specify the family type that I want, feed the geometry into that point. And you can see there that I have 203, right?
Oh, sweet. So it created a whole new bunch of elements in there, huh?
You got it. So if I come in here and I isolate down to just my structural columns and turn off my Revit link.
Nice. There
There
we
we are.
go. Okay, so you basically copied this way all
Yeah,
these structural comments from the structural model into your host document. That's
you
nice.
got it. That maybe Copy Monitor doesn't allow me to copy.
Yeah, or like maybe that's something else that you want to do. Maybe like you're looking at somebody else's model and they have a whole bunch of data, metadata on their components, and you want those metadata in your model. So you can just read the property values and find the exact same component in your model and apply the property values
it.
to them, that kind of stuff, like copy values, whatever.
So many ways that we could use this Python tool.
Yeah. So we'll share the links to the stuff that I showed you. We have the Dynamo definition, both the sort of like the empty one that doesn't have the component in it and a completed one inside the page, and we add the documentation links to it too.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you get notifications. Ring the bell, right? All the YouTube things. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much, Ehsan, for teaching us this amazing Python tool for Revit.
Anytime.